The Civil Code of Quebec. The Civil Code of Quebec, in harmony with the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, and the general principles of law, governs persons, relations between persons, and property. The Civil Code comprises a body of rules which, in all matters within the letter, spirit, or object of its provisions, lays down the jus commun, expressly or by implication. Black Laws, 9th edition, expressed, declared in direct terms, stated in words not left to inference or implication. Black Laws, 9th edition, implication. Subsection 2. An inference drawn from something said or observed. Observed. From Wikipedia, jus commun, or jus commun, is Latin for common law. Common law. This is a federal act. It's called Civil Law Harmonization Act of Canada. Whereas all Canadians are entitled to access to federal legislation in keeping with the common law and civil law traditions. So here in Quebec, the main code that governs the people, or the human beings, if you will, is called the Civil Code of Quebec. Now, in the preamble of the Civil Code of Quebec, it states that the Civil Code of Quebec is an expression of common law. And it states that it expresses common law either expressly, through directly what you're reading in the article of law, or through implication, meaning that it's implying common law, but you have to deduce that it's implying common law. Now, when you look to the Federal Acts of Canada, you're going to find something that's called the Civil Law Harmonization Act. And they have two of them. The Civil Law Harmonization Act. And in it, it states that, again, that Canada is a common law country, or common law state. And that this Civil Law Harmonization Act is erecting articles of law that come in harmonization with the Quebec Civil Code. So, two things we learn. That for sure there's common law in Canada, and that in the Quebec Civil Code it's either expressly or implicitly revealed to us. Civil Code of Quebec, Article 1. Every human being possesses juridical personality and has the full enjoyment of civil rights. In the Quebec Civil Code, there's over 3,000 articles of law that is indicated in that code. And there's only one article of law that states the word human being. And that is the first article of law. And it reads that every human being possesses a juridical personality, or a legal person. A person. Now, if you watch the video that I made just prior to this one, you'll see how they created that person by law. So every human being possesses a juridical personality or a legal person. Now, when you look into international law, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 6, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 16, you see that it states this: everyone has the right to take recognition as a person. So back into the Civil Code, Article 1, the first article, you're introduced to two subjects, two players. A human being, and that human being possesses or can take recognition as a juridical personality, a legal person. Now in international law, you see it again. Everyone, so that human being, has the right, you have a right, not an obligation, the right to take recognition as a person before the law. So they're in agreement. So player number one, subject number one, the human being, everyone, the man and the woman, can take recognition as a legal or natural person before the law. Now, when a human being or everyone takes recognition as a legal person, they are first and foremost a subject and a servant of Her Majesty here in Canada. That is unmistakable. And they have taken an oath of allegiance to Her Majesty. Whether they mean it or not in their heart, the law says that that's what you have done. Now, Her Majesty, when you read the enactments, she's the one who enacts the laws. They create the laws. They create the laws and they create the person in law who they apply the laws upon. Now, the government, the state party, Canada, the provincial governments, wherever you are, they recognize the rights and the duties that the person has. They recognize it. If you don't believe me, then get in your car right now and go into a 50 zone. Make sure there's nobody around so you don't harm any human beings, and speed up and down the street. And then call a cop on your cell phone and say, I saw a car going up and down the street at 90 kilometers or 100 kilometers an hour in a 50 zone, and he just keeps going up and down the street. They will come and they will say, excuse me, you have a duty to follow the sign that says 50 kilometers an hour, and you didn't. So there is created by law duties and obligations upon the person that are recognized by the government and enforced by the government, by the state party. Now the human being, the everyone, also has rights and freedoms. And these rights and freedoms, they are recognized. And let's qualify that. They should be recognized. And they are recognized on paper. But it's up to you to put them forth. But they are recognized by the government and the state parties. Now, growing up in school, in our secular education, and around what we do here in Canada, we don't learn about this part of the law, the human being and everyone. We learn about this part of the law. That's what we learn about. However, there's a whole other side that's available to us that extends to us through common law. And these rights and freedoms are enumerated and they are articulated within covenants that you can use. The Civil Code of Quebec, Article 2806. Judicial notice. No proof is required of a matter of which judicial notice shall be taken. Article 2807. This is very important. Judicial notice shall be taken of the law in force in Quebec. However, statutory instruments in force in Quebec, but not published in the Gazettes Official de Québec or in any other manner prescribed by law, international treaties, you see that, international treaties and agreements applicable to Quebec, but not contained in a text of law and customary international law, shall be pleaded. Quebec Civil Code, Article 2808. Judicial notice shall be taken of any fact that is so generally known that it cannot reasonably be questioned. You hear that? 2809. Judicial notice may be taken of the law of other provinces or territories of Canada, and of that of a foreign state, provided it has been pleaded. Now listen to this. Where such law, the international treaties, the Universal Declaration and such forth, where such law has not been pleaded, or its content has not been established, the court applies the law in force in Quebec. Back into the Civil Code of Quebec, Article 2806, it states that no proof is required of a matter of which judicial notice shall be taken. So that's basically putting this in another way, is saying that if there's a law or an obligation upon the government, then they should be aware of the fact. You shouldn't have to go in there kicking and screaming with your arms up and saying, what's going on? You're violating my rights. Judicial notice should have been taken. Now, in the Article 2807 in the Civil Code states this, that international treaties, okay, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, not specifically that one because it's not really a treaty or a covenant that you can hold them accountable to, but the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the International Covenant on Social and Economic Rights. Those are international treaties, okay, and agreements that are applicable in Quebec, but are not contained in a text of law. Okay, now those types of laws, they have to be pleaded. That's what it states, that they shall be pleaded. So it's up to you as a human being that if you ever have to go into this game, into the act that they are playing with the laws, that you will have to plead the international treaties and agreements before them. And make them take judicial notice of your rights and freedoms as a human being. So it's up to you to plead these international treaties that the state party is obligated to, that Canada and Quebec is obligated to, if you ever have to. Now, 2809 of the Civil Code of Quebec states this: judicial notice may be taken of a law of other provinces or territories in Canada, or of a law of a foreign state. So even other laws from other provinces or other foreign states you can draw their attention to. Now, it says where such laws, talking about the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, talking about that, where such law has not been pleaded. So you went to court and you never pleaded those laws. You went to court and you never drew on your rights and freedoms as a human being to shake off the commercial obligation as the servant or subject of Her Majesty. Where such law has not been pleaded, the court applies the law in force in Quebec. This article of law is very powerful. What it's declaring? It's saying that there are laws in force in Quebec that can be applied upon you if you don't plead these other laws, which is 98% of the time, 99.5% of the time, what is happening in the courts of justice around here. Because we, as human beings, have never been taught our rights and freedoms. So, God forbid, when we are ever entangled in the law, for whatever situation it is, our automatic response is to go before the law as a person. Thereby, we hire a lawyer and pay them money and have them defend us, what we think they're defending us, and hope for the best. However, you, as a human being, as a man or a woman, have the right to plead the international treaties, these laws that have granted you rights and freedoms before the courts. And if you do so, they must take recognition of them. But if you don't plead them, then the court will apply the law that is in force in Quebec and disregard or not even give you a chance. When you go in there, they won't draw up the treaties. They won't tell you of your rights and freedoms as a human being. You have to. Quebec Code of Civil Procedure, Article 298. Before testifying, the witness must declare his name, age, and residence. 299. No person may testify under the penalty of the nullity of his disposition unless he swears that he will tell the truth. In all cases, the court must see to it that the form of the oath, which consists in making the solemn affirmation to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, is read to the witness in such a way as to be well understood by him. Now we're going to jump in to the Code of Civil Procedure here in Quebec. We're going to look at Article 298 and 299. It starts off, it says, before testifying, the witness, notice the designation that they use, the witness, must declare his name, age, and residence. Now, 299 states that no person, notice that, first it was the witness, now they changed the designation to a person. No person may testify under the penalty of nullity of his disposition, which means that they can nullify or strike out your statement unless he swears he will tell the truth. So unless you swear, raise your hand and say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, they can strike out your testimony. They can strike it out and remove it from record. Now, when we go to court, they call the name. They say, for example, John Smith, come forward. John Smith, please state, is this your residence? They state the address where you live and your age, and you say yes. What they're looking for here is your legal person. Before testifying, the witness must declare his name, age, and residence. At that point here, They're trying to get you to declare the name, the residence, and the age of the legal person. Of that legal person. That's been created by law and assigned and attached to the human being. Now, it's at this point, when the court starts, that you need to inject and state Article 1 of the Civil Code of the Quebec Civil Code, and says that, Judge, every human being has a juridical personality, a legal person. And in Article 299 of the Civil Code of Quebec, it states that these legal persons are created by law, and they are constituted by an act, a regulation. And they are assigned a name, and they are controlled or governed for public interest. Is this the name that you are looking for? Because there is a name that is attached to a legal person, and there is a name that represents a human being. I here today, I'm standing before you, and I'm declaring that I am a human being, and not a legal person. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights states that everyone has the right to recognition as a legal person. That's an article of law, Judge. I am under no obligation to take recognition as a legal person. I recognize myself and designate and stand under the designation of a human being.